I would start the strategic argument for maintaining the relationship with Putin is simply that keeping Russia reasonably happy keeps Russia neutral when India and China clash, and India and China remain, as I said, for India, China is overwhelmingly the number one strategic concern. So basically, you have to maintain a certain relationship with Russia, which incorporates a bit of money being transferred for now basically raw commodities, as the defense relationship is not going anywhere. So if for India, it's really about keeping keeping Russia more or less happy enough to tell China whenever there is a problem between India and China and Russia's in the room, we cannot choose between the two of you. This has happened. We saw this at the G20 summit in Delhi. We have seen this in many other events. We've even seen Russia provide weapons to India when India and China have clashed on the border. And Russia's response is, India's our friend, you are our friend, and that's the way it's going to have to stay with the Chinese. And that's for India is good enough. It's a managed decline, I would argue, between the India-Russia relationship, because it's harder and harder for India to sustain the relationship on the economic side. But it's strategically very useful for the time being.
Yeah, it's an interesting diplomatic trio, isn't it, Pramit? You know, when Modi arrived in Russia, I saw a headline on Reuters saying Russian missile attack kills 36 and hits a children's hospital in Ukraine. What do you make of the optics of Modi's visit and the timing? Is there any good timing?
No, there is no good timing because it's a continuous war in Ukraine. But for an Indian perspective, there's a war in Myanmar, there's a war in South Sudan, there's a war in Sudan, there's a war in Ethiopia, there's a war in Yemen. These are all countries near India, much closer to India. And in case of Myanmar, it's actually directly affecting India in a way. For what they see as Western concerns about Ukraine, which are perfectly valid from a Western perspective. From an Indian perspective, we have other wars in our neighborhood nobody's paying much attention to, and that's what we will focus on. India does not see itself as a global power, and is very clear in its mind that it does not want to get involved in other people's wars. But what Modi has said, and this has happened when he continues to be invited to every G7 summit, when the Western leaders have asked him, would you be prepared to mediate between Ukraine and Russia? He said that I don't have a problem if both the countries ask me to. And he also maintains a very good relationship with Zelensky, because Zelensky has favors to ask of him as well, and India does fulfill those. But India is very clear it's not involved in the war in Ukraine. It's not involved in any other wars around the world.